Hey Dunchbags, what's going on? It's LandonRemixes here, and welcome to my newest album review of Above and Beyond's We're All We Need. It's actually the first album review I've ever done. I mentioned this in my Best of 2014 video that I was going to start doing album reviews, and I had intended on Hardwell's United We Are album being the first one that I reviewed in 2015, but I decided this one would be as good a time as any, as I had already listened through the entire album and decided that it would be a good idea to review this and get this out there before the album releases, because it feels kind of cool, honestly. So this new album's called We Are All We Need. It's their first studio record together since Group Therapy, and it's their first project together since their acoustic album, which came out last year in 2014, early 2014 anyway. And basically the album kind of centers around that Group Therapy sound, also bringing in some new progressive house styles, which is kind of what's big in the past couple of years with Swedish House Mafia. Basically all the styles that have come out and come and gone with melodic pieces, and the way trance music is heading from 2011, I'm pretty sure, when Group Therapy came out, and to 2015, what it is now. And you still see some reminiscent of their stuff as Ocean Lab with their Sirens of the Sea album. A lot of it's very chill and relaxing. Starting off with the piano kind of ambient intro called Quieter's Louder. That's actually one of my favorite moments from the album, but it leads into this kind of, I don't really know, kind of boring trance track called We're All We Need, which is, I consider to be the title track, but I'm not too impressed with it. It kind of gets better and transfers into that classic Above and Beyond Group Therapy sound, which I like. Group Therapy is actually one of my favorite albums that I own, even though I only got it last year. It's still one of the most feel-tastic albums I own, and it's very clean all the way through, and I really enjoyed it. But this album kind of feels like a rerun. I'm not saying that at this point, or I'm only for this point, because the album truly, I really like it as a whole, and we'll see at the end when whatever I give it for a rating. That's what I think about We're All We Need. I wasn't really crazy about that track. That's probably my least favorite track. Blue Sky Action is kind of the lead single, I think, even though Sticky Fingers and Making Plans had previously come out along with Hello had already released. I think the lead single idea was really centered around Blue Sky Action, which features Alex Vargas, and he's kind of the new Richard Bedford, I'd say. He featured on Above and Beyond's acoustic album. He sang all the Richard Bedford songs and some new songs like Making Plans he sang on, and I wouldn't say he's necessarily an improvement from Richard Bedford, but I think they're stretching too far to find a vocalist that sounds like him and that will be able to do the job as good as Richard Bedford did. I don't know why they abandoned Richard, because he's been with Above and Beyond for a while. Maybe they decided he'd be better for a progressive house style. I'm not really sure. I didn't really research into that, but Alex Vargas makes a very, very good appearance in this track. Very nice feeling progressive house song. It's one of my favorite tracks on the album. Like I said, it was the lead single, so I think that's kind of why they centered it around this big, kind of classic big room sound, per se. It's a very nice melodic piece anyway. Also, the album kind of has a lot of transitions that are very relaxing and smooth. There's a lot of ocean sounds, which kind of reminds me of Ocean Lab. I think that might have been a nod toward that. Throughout the transitions, I really like them, and the next track is Peace of Mind, which kind of switches into a little electro style, once again with Zoe Johnston, and the vocals, I think, sound a lot better on this track than We're All We Need did. It's kind of a long interlude, I think, into from the progressive house feel, and kind of takes that classic Above and Beyond sound, but other than that, I don't feel like it's a really awesome track. Like I said, I think the vocals are a lot stronger in this track, but don't necessarily impress me as much as they could. So there's a track called Counting Down the Days, and this track really reminds me of classic Deadmau5. That's what I got from it, like random album title age. That album, basically as a whole, is what this track reminded me of, and that's what I get a lot when I hear Above and Beyond. They were also signed to the same record label when Group Therapy came out. I think Random Album Title had come out a couple years before. Then we get into Sticky Fingers, which is actually by far my favorite track on the album. I could say a lot about this track. Alex Vargas is back on it. This was the first song that I heard on the album, I think, other than Hello, which I had heard on the Ultra Music Festival soundtrack a couple months before. But Sticky Fingers, I hadn't heard the radio edit yet, and this track blew me away the first time I heard it. It kind of goes from this nice piano intro to this hard electro thumping drop, and I'm just crazy about that sound, and then it goes back into the vocals and then back into a nice progressive house drop. This track is by far the best track on the record in my opinion. Hello, I think that was a good one. I definitely think it kind of reminds me of an 80s 90s synth pop kind of record. It is very trancey. I definitely like it. There's a little vocal chopping. There's a track called All Over the World, which has been getting some attention lately. Alex Vargas. This is actually my least favorite track that has him in it. I don't think his vocal work was very strong, and it kind of goes in... It has this smooth production and sticks with the classic Above and Beyond sound, like I said, with Group Therapy, but I'm still not overly impressed with that. These last couple singles that they've released from the album, I'm not too crazy about. But we get into Making Plans, which was actually premiered on their acoustic album. I really enjoyed this track far more than the acoustic version I did. I think it was a lot better of a version. Even though I really like the acoustic album, there's a lot of tracks with like Annie Drury, who I actually think should have made an appearance in this album instead of Zoe Johnston, because all three of them featured in the acoustic album: Zoe Johnston, Alex Vargas, and Annie Drury. But I think she should have been on this album instead. I think that would have been a lot better choice than Zoe Johnston's vocals when I listen to the tracks. Although Above and Beyond wants to stick with that trance sound, and Zoe Johnston's got very nice vocals, if they want to progress into a nice progressive house melodic state, I think they should go with Annie Drury, who is, I think, in my opinion, a far stronger vocalist than Johnston is. Yeah, Making Plans has a very cool intro. It's a strong vocal moment for Alex Vargas. He shows off his vocal talent. It reminds me of the sound of acoustic, like I said, but I don't think it veers terribly far off, and it's a very chill track and manages to keep my attention and keep electronic elements. Then there's the two tracks Out of Time and Excuses, and I think these are probably not the strongest songs on the record. Out of Time is kind of like a trancey, euphoric interlude between vocal tracks. There's a few instrumentals anyway that kind of act like interludes to take a break, I think, from the strong vocals that we've been hearing the entire album. And then Excuses kind of gets into this really cheesy lyrically. It's got a familiar vocalist I put the first time. It turns out one of the singers from Above and Beyond decided to do the vocals on this track, which I think is pretty cool and makes me respect the track far more, because I thought it was just an uncredited vocal. I was thinking it was Richard Bedford at first, but it turns out it wasn't, because they probably would have decided to credit him. Yeah, like I said, the lyrics are pretty cheesy, and I wasn't crazy about that track in particular, but it's still catchy, manages to keep my toe tapping. I think it's still a very good track. There's a track called Save Me, which has a really nice electro groove. I've been really getting into electro lately since the Noisy Freaks album came out, but this album is very, like I said, toe tapping, catchy, very smooth, and I really like it. It's got an awesome intro. Sink the Lighthouse, I think it had a lot of potential to be a short interlude track, and it could have led into a very nice, which is the last track, Treasure, and I think it's a very good closer. It shows off production very well. Sink the Lighthouse, it kind of turns into a drawn-out vocal track, I think, which I'm not really enjoying. Once again, Zoe Johnston's back on it, and I did enjoy a couple tracks on the album from her, but I wasn't crazy about this one as a whole. It just seemed like it was too long and kind of stretched out, kind of bored me more than most of the tracks on the record. But I think, strangely, I think the piano actually ruins this track, and I usually enjoy piano, but for some reason this like kind of wrecked it as a whole, and I really didn't enjoy that one. But I'm gonna go ahead and summarize the album as a whole. I feel like I'm putting off bad vibes, but as a whole, the album is great. I actually liked it a lot, and oh, it's my favorite album of 2015. Yeah, I think it's a really good album. I would normally place it somewhere between a 4 and a 4.5. So I think I'm gonna start rating things with like I'm not sure how to word this. I would place it somewhere between a 4 and a 4.5 because I think it's not good enough to be a 4.5 and it's too good to be a 4, so I'm going to rate it an 8.5 out of 10, and I'm going to do decimals like that now, so that's how I think I'm going to organize my album reviews, is going to be like, let's say 7.5, 8.5, etc. The album is, even though it gets boring, and I think it could have been a lot better of an album if they had shrunk it down to about 10 or 12 tracks, I think it could have been a lot stronger of an album and really pushed that above and beyond sound without having to drag out similar sounds to Group Therapy. Like We're All We Need, I think they could have left that out. There's a couple, I think the interlude tracks were good. They could have kept maybe 2 of those in and made it a 12-track album, but I think 16 is just far too much for me to enjoy as a record. I think this album could have been a 9 or 9.5 easily if they had took out a couple of those tracks, because like I said, it just kind of extends it more than I would enjoy. So anyway, what do you guys think of this? What do you want me to do more album reviews later? I'm going to try to work on the way I talk and getting things shorter than the 13 minutes or so that I've been recording right now. And anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this album review. 8.5, Above and Beyond's We Are All We Need. Go check it out. I've already ordered it. That just shows that I really do enjoy the album, and I'm going to get it on release day. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll see you guys later.